Okay. All right, candidates.
Does that work?
Candidates assemble.
Oh, I love that color.
Hi, John.
Hey there.
Okay. All right, let's get the show on the road, everybody. Okay. Ready? Got our sound? Are you good? Check 1 1. Check 1 2. Testing. We're all good. Good for sound. Okay. Thanks so much for coming today, everybody. Welcome to Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We're here in Assiniboine Park, one of the great parks in Manitoba, to talk about the Manitoba Liberal plan for green growth and renewal. And let me tell you, unlike every other party's plan, the Manitoba Liberal plan is ambitious, it's practical, and it's achievable. And it will work in making a difference on climate change. Now, back in 2019, we put together a plan for the environment that was by far the most far-reaching of any party. Under that plan, we plan to bring down our emissions and start reducing, reclaiming, and storing the gases and pollution that are driving climate change. Our idea and our goal is that by 2030, with new technology, switching to electric away from fossil fuels, reducing emissions, and especially by working to rewild the province, we can pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and lock it back in trees, plants, and the soil. So we're actually doing everything we can to leave a better world to our children and future generations. This year, the problem is worse, and we have responded with an even bigger and better plan. I have never seen a wildfire summer like this one, where day after day, when I'm out knocking on doors, I can taste smoke, and the sun is a hazy red because our boreal forests are on fire and they're smothering the world. The costs to everyone are already huge. The emergency costs, the impact on farmers and agriculture, on wildlife, on water. We have storms washing out ports and industrial facilities, disrupting supply chains and causing shortages that are fueling inflation. That affects insurance companies. We have huge storms, once in a 1,000-year storms wiping out roads in western Manitoba, new insects and crop diseases. This was all predicted. We were talking about climate change when I was an undergraduate at the University of Manitoba over 30 years ago. We have a responsibility to act. So why haven't we? The reasons for the complete lack of progress over the years in Manitoba is that whenever anyone put forward a solution to do the right thing on climate, the PCs and NDP have mobilized to obstruct it, undermine it, or kill it, purely for political gain. They campaigned against it in government and in opposition. And in the Manitoba PC's case, they campaigned on a carbon tax, voted for a carbon tax, voted against a carbon tax, sued the federal government and lost, and then proposed having a carbon tax again. So let's be very clear about what our goal is and what it should be as a province. We want to show the world that we can fight climate change better than anyone else here in Manitoba. We can be an example of the world, to the world, of how to make this work and show we can do it better here than anywhere else. We want Manitoba to be part of the global fight against climate change, and under the PCs and the NDP, it hasn't been and it won't be. We want to bring Manitoba back into environmental balance so that by 2033 we are no longer making climate change worse, and so that after that we will actually be reversing it here in Manitoba. It's time for us to start paying off our climate debt. First, Manitoba Liberals will go back to the bargaining table with the federal government and take back control to negotiate our own made-in-Manitoba carbon levy. We will apply some of that levy to a $300 million a year green fund, administered through Efficiency Manitoba. All of those funds, all those $300 million will go to support projects that help us to adapt and to fight climate change. The mandate of Efficiency Manitoba would also be changed to include fighting climate change, which it isn't right now. It would still be politically independent. And the Green Fund would be a grant program for a range of green projects that allow Manitobans everywhere to reduce their energy costs, with a priority on programs that have the maximum impact. Eligible projects for Green Fund support would include home and commercial insulation programs to permanently lower your energy bills, new higher level green building codes to ensure new construction in Manitoba and retrofits both deliver energy savings and save us all money over the long term. We would establish electrical vehicles charging stations across Manitoba in partnership with Manitoba Hydro. The more vehicles we can move to electric, the less reliant Manitoba will be on over $5 billion a year in imported oil and gasoline. And we want to help people and businesses switch to clean electricity and hydrogen and restore the 50-50 transit funding for the City of Winnipeg. The other thing about it, which is a major part of this plan, is rewilding. We said we're born to rewild. Sometimes the best programs are the simplest. The single most effective, lowest cost way to fight climate change is through more wilderness, what is called rewilding, restoring natural forests, native grasslands, and wetlands. On the small scale, we'll offer grants for people and organizations to plant trees, gardens, and restore wilderness. So this is something every Manitoban can play a part in. Grants to schools, school divisions, municipalities, First Nations, and farmers for wilderness preservation and expansion. On the large scale of rewilding, we will also fund major projects and wildlife corridors. We will aim for the CPAW's 30% of protected lands in Manitoba, and we will work with farmers, municipalities, and First Nations to link new wildlife areas and restore them to how they were prior to settlement. The Red River Valley, the Saskatchewan River, the floodway can all be returned to their natural state. It's low cost, it's effective, it fights climate change, it's beautiful, and it helps bring back Manitoba species. This is not something that can wait. We've waited too long already. This week, Wab Kinew and the NDP made it clear. They have just as much contempt for climate science and fiscal responsibility as the PCs do. On climate change, the choice and contrast could not be more clear. Manitoba Liberals are the only party offering a real choice for real change on climate and the environment. Nous voulons rétablir l'équilibre environnemental au Manitoba, de sorte que, d'ici à 2023, nous n'aggravions plus le changement climatique et qu'ensuite, nous inversions ici au Manitoba. Il est temps de commencer à rembourser notre dette climatique. Tout d'abord, nous retournerons à la table de négociation avec le gouvernement fédéral, nous reprendrons le contrôle et nous négocierons notre propre taxe sur le carbone conçue au Manitoba. Nous l'appliquerons à un fonds vert de 300 millions de dollars par an par l'intermédiaire d'Efficiency Manitoba. Tous ces fonds serviront à soutenir des projets qui nous aideront à nous adapter au changement climatique et à le combattre. Les projets éligibles au soutien du fonds seront les suivants: les programmes d'isolation résidentielle et commerciale, de nouveaux codes de construction écologique, mise en place de stations de recharge pour véhicules électriques dans tout le Manitoba en partenariat avec l'Hydro, aider les particuliers et les entreprises à passer à l'électricité propre et à l'hydrogène vert, et rétablir le financement à part égale du transport en commun pour la ville de Winnipeg et rendre le financement du transport en commun disponible dans les centres urbains. Et aussi, parfois, les meilleurs programmes sont les plus simples. Le moyen le plus efficace, le moins coûteux de lutter contre le changement climatique est d'augmenter le nombre de zones sauvages de ce qu'on appelle le réensauvagement. Il s'agit de restaurer les forêts naturelles, les prairies indigènes et les zones humides. Ce n'est pas quelque chose qui peut attendre. Nous avons attendu trop longtemps. Cette semaine, Wab Kinew et l'NPD ont été très clairs. Ils ont été autant de mépris pour la science du climat que les conservateurs. En matière de changement climatique, le choix et le contraste ne pourraient être pas plus clairs. Les libéraux du Manitoba sont le seul parti qui offre un véritable choix pour un véritable changement en matière de climat et d'environnement. Merci, thank you, and I'll take any questions you have. Thank you. Yes. Yep.
Thank you for having us today. I'm Tyler. I'm here from the Free Press.
Yep.
You said that you would talk with the federal government about introducing a new provincial carbon levy. Can you explain how exactly that would work? Would this be on top of the federal carbon tax, or
No,
maybe I'm misunderstanding?
No. Look, it's about having our own. It's about Manitoba taking control of this. Right now, because the PCs campaigned on a carbon tax, voted to remove a carbon tax, voted for a carbon tax, and then voted to remove a carbon tax, and then sued the federal government. It's the law of the land that the carbon tax is a thing. So, as good law-abiding individuals, we are going to renegotiate it so that it's controlled by the province, so that we can put different programs in place. So that, for example, actually, John, if you wanted to even address this, because we have some special levies when we were talking about what we need to do around agriculture to make sure that we're not putting too much of a burden. But fundamentally, it's about the province taking back control of these funds and making sure that we're controlling how these funds are being spent instead of the federal government. But I'll turn it over to you, John.
Yeah. I mean, essentially what happens now is that in provinces which have an agreement with the federal government, the federal tax is in place, but the money comes to the provinces, right? In provinces like Manitoba, where there is no agreement in place, what's happening is that the federal government not only collects the tax, but they decide how it's going to be given back or spent. And so what we will do is make sure that Manitoba has control over how that money is spent so that we can do the very best we can for Manitobans and for climate in our province.
Can you explain to me, and this is just
For sure.
my sake, what exactly is an ecological corridor?
Sure.
What does that look like physically? What will people see?
Sure. I mean, this is something that John's been working on, but it's a key part of rewilding. So the idea is that right now we have these little islands of parks. We have an island here and an island here, and as a result, it traps wildlife. They're not able to travel. They're not able to roam the way they used to, and it's actually undermining the health of our ecosystem. So what you do is you connect parks. So you would essentially have protected areas or semi-protected areas. You would work with First Nations, rural municipalities, private landowners. It's not about government taking over, but what you do is make sure that moose or elk or bison or bears can travel from one place to another without having to cross farmers' fields, without having to cross highways. So some of it is putting bridges in place. Some of it is essentially connecting a larger network of parks so that you'd be able to return it to a wild state. And because we've lost so much of that, but that is a key part to bringing back major species in Manitoba, bringing back endangered species in Manitoba. So John has talked about doing it. The Red River Valley could be an ecological corridor. You'd still have people working and doing business and farming, but you'd make sure that it's like a moose highway. So what we're going to do is we're going to build some moose and elk highways in Manitoba to make sure that they can get from place to place. Another example would be turning the Red River extension the Red River floodway extension could become a carbon sink. So it's really about being innovative and linking wild areas that have been cut off from one another. And it's huge for climate change. It's amazing for species regeneration across the board. I mean, from birds to wildlife to everything. I mean, basically, it's about returning not just major wildlife, but every single part of ecosystems that have been eradicated and restoring them. And they are actually better at fighting climate change. So it's a low-cost, effective way of harnessing the power of nature to help heal and restore our province and address climate change.
And then in terms of the land, it's a combination of Crown land and land from municipalities who want to participate and First Nations and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so but what it is just part of it is to fund people, making sure that we've got people working together. John we already have a bill in the legislature to propose wilderness corridors. Yeah, and it's a voluntary thing. It's about bringing people together to say, let's all do this good thing together. And by the way, the Green Fund will provide you funding to make sure that you're not facing any losses. So we'd actually, it could fund infrastructure, it could fund water diversion or water maintenance projects, the whole thing. The important thing is about not just protecting 30% of Manitoba, which we are committing to do, but also to put money into actively rewilding. It's absolutely critical.
and final one for
Yeah.
me here. Sorry, guys.
No, not at all.
You said that this week the NDP demonstrated that they hold just as much contempt for the environment as the PC
Yep.
government. To clarify, are you referring to the NDP's announcement that they'll cut costs at the pump?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the NDP's promise to eliminate the provincial gas tax is fiscally irresponsible and it's environmentally disastrous. That is hundreds of millions of dollars potentially over a year that you're basically just setting on fire, when we could be putting that money into rewilding, into transit, into making sure that we're actually helping people cut their costs forever. I mean, if you actually put that amount of money into helping people with retrofits, you would actually permanently drive down people's energy costs for the rest of the time they own their house. But instead, they're spending $165 million in just 6 months buying gas for people. It's the worst. I'll step back. Borrowing money to buy gas for people that is literally going to go up in smoke out somebody's tailpipe. It is completely irresponsible, both fiscally as well as environmentally. And it's very cynical, but I mean, I do not know that the NDP are giving anyone to vote for, especially on the environment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, or we're good? Do you want me to redo all of it?
We'll do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for sure. I can get it. I can revamp it. I can just go over the top thing. No, I'll just say to recap. There we go. So to recap, the Manitoba Liberal commitment that we're announcing today is the creation of a $300 million a year fund for green projects. It would be available to families, to school divisions, to municipalities, to First Nations. The idea is to give everyone the opportunity to pitch in the fight against climate change, because now is the time to start repaying our climate debt. There is no excuse for not acting, especially in a year like this when we've seen it's not just Manitoba's forests, but Canada's forests go up in smoke as part of a climate crisis. And we're the only party talking about this. We're the only party taking this seriously. The other thing that we'll be doing is to be making sure that we go back and we take back control over our own policy. Right now it's being run by the federal government, and Manitoba Liberals are the only party that are actually talking about taking our environmental tax policy back under control and making it so that we decide that those decisions are made here in Winnipeg and in Manitoba and not in Ottawa. And that's it. Thank you very much. Merci bien.
Careful.
There we go. Sorry about that.